So here we are in Sketchfab 3D settings. The first thing we'll do is in the first tab, we'll set shading on shadeless, because we'll use shadeless models in this case. And then in the third one, in materials, we'll add our textures now. If you click on this menu here, you'll see there's a floor BC, grass BC and well BC. So those are the base colors we need to add. So let's start with the floor. And as you can see, it also selects it here in the viewport. It highlights it for a while. And the workflow is either metalness or specular. In shadeless scenes, it doesn't really matter. So let's add our first texture. So here in base color, click on this little thing here and say import textures. And here we go to Blender Udemy and then go to your textures folder and add the floor plane texture, the grass texture, and with control add the well texture as well. Hit open. And now all the textures are loaded in. We were working on the floor now, so we click on the floor plane. And by magic, there is the floor plane. But the transparency isn't there yet, so let's turn it on. Let's go down here. And first thing you'll see is that emission is turned on. You can turn it off, we don't need that, because there's no emitting parts in our scene. And then here we have opacity. Click that open and turn it on. It's on blending now, let's leave it like that. And again, click on the little icon here. And choose your texture. Scroll down and choose the floor plane texture. And there we have our transparency, so that's good. This type of transparency does not cast shadows, but we don't use any shadows here because we're using a shadeless model. Then we'll scroll up and we can either here choose grass or just click on the grass here. It'll switch to grass there as well. Leave it on metalness again, base color, click on the little icon here, choose a texture and choose the grass texture. Again, there's the problem with the transparency. I'll zoom in a little bit. So we'll have to go down again, turn emission off and turn opacity on. And here we will choose the correct texture. So that's the grass texture. Okay, so that looks very nice. Then we'll do the well. Click on the well. And when you scroll up, it says well base color again. So base color, change the well base color, choose the correct texture. And the well doesn't have any transparency, so we are fine. Just turn emission off, and that's everything we have to do in this texture part, so we can go to the next step. When you look at the texture now, it looks okay, but we can do much better than this, so I'll give you some tips to have it look just that little bit more awesome. Okay, here we go. We go to the first tab again, that's the scene tab. And it's on shadeless, that's correct. The field of view, if we turn that up a little bit, like so, what you can see is we have a more fish eye kind of view. I like that a lot because it gives just a little bit more feeling of depth. And what it also does is when you look at it like this, if you put it down, the top of the base and the bottom of the roof is very flat. And when you turn this up a little bit, you can see you can look inward a little bit more. And that's something we want because we want to show a little bit of the bottom of the roof and a little bit of the top of the base as well. So let's put this on 70. Then we go to the background here. Forget wireframe, that's not important. You can turn it on, but then you'll see the wireframe. That's not something you want. So go to the background and it says here ambient environment. We don't want an ambient environment. We would like to have an environment that looks a little bit more like something. This is the wrong background, don't worry, we'll change that later. Put the blur on 2, so you have a little bit of an idea of what's going on there. And the brightness on 1 is correct. Okay, so that's it for the scene settings. Let's go to the next one, this lighting. And here you see in lighting, the background is some kind of desert. Well, we thought about the story of this well and it was standing in the wood. So what we need is a wood scene. So let's go to a wood scene. Here's a mural wood. I don't know what that is, but there's some place probably on Earth. Click on that and that looks a lot better, doesn't it? You really get the sense that this is the correct background. Now there's just a tiny thing I'd like to do, and is make sure that the light comes from the correct side. So we have the darker part here and the lighter part there. So we have to make sure that this light part is on this side and the darker part is on that side. It is now on 28.8 degrees. That's about good. I would set it on 20. The brightness, you can put that on 1 if you ask me, just a little lighter. And that's it for the light tab. We already did the materials tab. So the next thing we'll do is post-processing filters. Let's click on that one. And the post-processing filters are all kinds of extras, you could say. So you could add some grain, for example. It looks a little bit grainy now. Stuff like that. What I would want to do is add some ambient occlusion and add some depth of field. We could also add some vignette if you like that. So let's see, let's put the ambient occlusion on. And as you can see, it's really hard here. That's not what I want. I want it a little bit more subtle. So let's put the radius on 40. It's then a little bit bigger, but now it's just too dark. So let's put the intensity on 0.2. And let's put the bias on about 4. So if you turn it off or on now, you see it just looks a little nicer, I think. If you don't like it, turn it off, but I like it. Okay, so that's the ambient occlusion. And then the depth of field. I think that's one you should really turn on because it does a lot to your picture. I would say set the foreground blur a little bit lower and the background blur a little bit higher. That just gives a little bit more depth. And the nice thing about this depth of field in Sketchfab is that you can click on any place on the scene and then it focuses on that part. So that part will be sharp and not having any bokeh, as it's called, this on sharpness. So you can click on the front, for example, and now the front is sharp, and you can click on the back, and and then the back is sharp. I would like to focus on the point here, but when you click on it, the complete well is in focus, and that's because it's just taking the middle point of that part of the mesh. So luckily we have a lot of tiny meshes, so we can just click on one of the grass meshes and it will focus on that mesh. So let's click on this one, for example, or that one. As you can see, you can really fine-tune this the way you like to have it. So let's put a little bit more to the back. Something like that. What I would like as well is that these hard edges here are out of focus. So just try a little bit something more like this. Just play with it until it's something that looks nice to you. Play with the angle as well, so turn it around a little bit. I think something like this is nice. So this is sharp, pretty sharp, and this is unsharp. So let's do a save view here, then it will save everything you just did. Like that. If you want to know how exactly you can move around, you can press on this little question mark here, and here you get all the shortcuts needed to move around. Let's click it away by hitting the cross here. Okay, so we did all the post-processing filters we want. Oh, another one is the vignette. We could add that as well. The vignette is nothing more than just a little blackness around the edges. I'll turn it off for now. I didn't do that in the example I showed before. But, well, you can turn it a little bit harder. That's a little bit too much, I guess. And the amount, so a little bit darker, a little bit lighter. It adds something. If you like it, you can do that. And there's a lot more. Just play with all of these settings if you like to. I won't explain them all. I just give this example. Okay, the next thing we'll do is we'll go to the animations. If you don't know what animations are, I'll just show you. It says here double click on your model to create animations. So let's do that. Let's click here, for example. And then you'll see a 1 here on the model and a title and a description. So you can type any descriptive information in here. For example, overview well, and here you say something, look, my first model, model, for example. Then hit OK. And now here, the overview well animation is made. If you click on the camera, it will also remember the current point of view. So what you are seeing now. So this is a point of view and this is a point of view, if you didn't understand, for example. And now it just saved the point of view that goes with the animation. So when you click on this, turn back to that view you used when you clicked on the camera. Okay, so hit OK here. So we made one animation. Let's make another one. For example, let's make one of the grass. So let's turn around a bit. Let's look for a nice point where you can have a look at the grass particles. So for example, let's go down a bit, like this, a little bit to the right, a little bit close to the grass again. And as you can see, it already focused on the grass particles. If it didn't do that, just click on it once and hopefully it will focus on them like that. And now we want to add another animation, so just double click here. Oh, and it got out of focus again, but we'll fix that later on. And here, for example, type in grass, and in description type in something like it's green. Let's say okay. We didn't like the depth of field here, so just click on the grass again, and now you can click on the camera. And now it will remember exactly this image. You have a look at this menu here, you can select an animation. So let's go back to the first one, overview well. And let's go to the second one, you'll see this one. It does that with a very nice transition. Let's make another one. Let's look for a nice view again. So let's find another angle. And a tip I like to give you is try to put the animation on opposite sides of the model, because then the transition from one animation to the other goes a long way. That's just that much nicer than it goes a short way. Just click on this part of the model, for example, and say call it bricks. In the description you can say something like hand painted, for example, hand painted. Okay, let's click on the model again to choose the focus point and click on the camera to make sure that this image is saved. Okay, and let's go to the other side again and let's choose the roof. And let's choose something like this, for example, a little bit from the top. That's nice. You're looking into the well as well. Click and double click and call this roof. Nice tiles. I don't know. You can probably think of something better. Okay, and so that's 4. And the last one we'll do is, and let's go to the other side again. Last one we'll do is the wood. So let's change the perspective again a little bit, something like this, that you look a little bit at the sky, for example, like so, something like that. And let's focus on the wood and double click on it and say wood and say this was a tree. I'm just making it up, it's not that important. And the focus point is good, and click on the camera again, and now we have all 5 animations we want. Now we can here select all the animations. 1 and 2 we already had, so let's click 3. That's this one. And what I meant with choosing a spot on the other side is that when I click on 4 now, it transfers from one side to the other side, and that's just, I think, very nice. I don't think this depth of field is correct, so let's click on it again, and let's see, this is the roof. So click on the camera again, like so. Let's try it again, bricks or grass. Roof. Didn't save it. That's strange. Just change the view a little bit. That will help probably. Let's do it again. Let's go to the wood and back to the roof. Now it's correct. Okay. Okay, so roof, wood, and overview well. That's the first one again. Okay. Make sure you save your settings, because else you'll lose everything again. And the next thing we'll do is we will not do any animation, because there's no animation in here. Next thing we'll do is we'll go to the virtual reality part. Okay, so that's it for this part, and let's go on to the next. Bye bye.